Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of Metal Roots. Tonight I am thrilled to have with me Mark Briody from the band Jag Panzer. For a lot of you out there, I'm sure that's a household name, but for those of you who don't know, it's a band with a 40 plus year career in metal. It's going to be great to talk with Mark tonight and just learn a little bit more about why heavy metal and why he's been doing Jag Panzer for all these years and what's his passion for metal. Where did that come from? So, Mark, I'm just going to kind of jump in and ask, did you grow up in a musical household? Did anybody in your family play music or instruments?
No, no one played music. My father was a pretty good singer, but he had tried singing a little bit when he was really young, long before I was born, and didn't really do anything for it. He didn't go anywhere, so he just would sing around the house, but no one played any instruments. But what everybody in my house did was play music all the time.
Okay.
I mean, my older sister, I was just, 8, 9, and she was playing Elton John and Cat Stevens, and then her boyfriend played me Deep Purple for the first time, which changed my life. My dad had a great stereo system and a huge vinyl collection. So my dad was always playing classical music, Rat Pack, jazz, opera, everything. But he really wasn't into any like rock music or anything like that. But he had a huge vinyl collection.
That's awesome. So what are your earliest memories of music? Do you remember like what you might have heard first? I mean, you mentioned Deep Purple and that, but anything else that sticks out?
Yeah, I remember being 5 and having the vinyl for Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs soundtrack. And I went over to my girlfriend Diane's house, and she wanted to just play certain songs, and I was just appalled. I'm like, no, we have to listen to the whole thing in order. And she didn't want to do that, so I just took my record and went home.
Yeah.
The first vinyl I bought myself was Elton John's Goodbye Yellow Brick Road.
Okay.
So and that was followed very soon after by Deep Purple's Machine Head, which just completely changed my life.
Right. Awesome. You kind of answered one of my future questions, but do you remember the first heavy metal or hard rock thing you heard aside from Deep Purple? Was there anything else, or Sabbath or anyone like that you remember hearing?
Yeah, it was definitely Deep Purple. Some kids in the neighborhood then played me some Sabbath, and I wasn't really into it a lot. I mean, I thought it was okay. Then they played me Rainbow, which I loved. So Rainbow actually became my favorite band when I was a kid, and UFO as well.
Cool.
Budgie was something the neighborhood kids would play.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was those 3 bands were really, really my initial biggest bands. Yeah, Rainbow, UFO, and Budgie.
Yeah. So what was it about kind of maybe the harder edge music that drew you to it? How did it speak to you?
I like because they seemed to be no limits. Like Rainbow had some really beautiful mellow music, like Catch a Rainbow and Rainbow Eyes and Temple of the King. And then they also got, considerably heavier for the time, like the devil. Oh no, I can't think of the title. The devil will take you. Gates of Babylon.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. So yeah, it was just the huge variety of music that these bands were able to do. Like, as much as I loved Elton John, and I still do, you didn't hear him bust out metal tracks.
Right.
But, Deal with Rainbow was getting just as melodic as Elton John was, and also getting heavy. So, yeah, I knew that was the music for me.
Yeah.
Oh, let's see. Well, I mean, I should note the first concerts I went to, I was still in elementary school, and I saw Harry Chapin, which was great. My sister took me, and I saw Parliament Funkadelic, which was awesome too. My sister took me to that. The first concert that I went alone with my friends, I saw Yes in the Round, which was cool when I was a young teenager. I saw a festival gig with Hart, Ted Nugent, and UFO was there. So
cool.
And that was kind of my first glance into, what's wrong with the music business? Why is UFO playing first? And why are they only playing 20 minutes?
Right.
They opened for everybody. I mean, they opened for the Cars, who were brand new. The Cars were cool, and I like the Cars, and they had some hits, but in my world, they weren't Rainbow. None of those bands were, but that was my first lesson about the music business, is just because I like a band doesn't mean they're popular and sell a lot of records. But UFO was great. Love their set.
Okay, so now you're into music, you've been drawn into it. These bands have started to influence you, but when did you actually first start playing?
Well, Harry Conklin, who sings for Jag Panzer, he grew up 6 houses up the street from me. So I've known him since we were 6 years old. Our bass player, John, met him same time, 6 years old. Harry started playing guitar a year before me. So I remember going up to his house and he played the riff to Kiss God of Thunder. And I just couldn't believe how cool that was. I'm like, oh my God, this is insane. Harry's playing like a real metal song, a Kiss song. And so I begged my parents for an electric guitar. Harry said he would teach me. So they got me a $15 guitar from the pawn shop and took it up to Harry's house right away. And he taught me God of Thunder and a little bit of Detroit Rock City. So I just worked on those like crazy. And I told my parents, I got to get a better guitar. I mean, it was junk. So I did a bunch of chores for them. I sold a lot of things at a garage sale. We didn't have any money. My dad was enlisted in the military and supporting a family of 5 with a stay-at-home mom. So we were very poor. So I did what I can, scraped together some money, and got a $50 Les Paul copy. And my parents realized I was really into it, and they asked me if I wanted to take guitar lessons. So we went to Johnny Smith's studio. Johnny Smith was Bing Crosby's guitar player and one of the greatest jazz players ever. And he was still running the store. He had quit teaching, but he was still there every day. So I was assigned to his top student, and her name was Denisa. And she was a great guitar player. And we did one lesson, and she said, well, you're going to need a real guitar. This will not work. So, yeah, it took me about 4 months. I said, you're going to have to give me a few months because I'm going to have to save up. I went and got a dishwashing job after school.
Sure.
And I bought a used Gibson SG. And then, just started practicing like crazy and wrote my first song about a year and a half later. And, asked Harry if he wanted to sing on it, because Harry'd been singing since he was about 8 years old in school. I mean, he was always the top singer, and he's very skilled at it, could read music for vocals, could score music, could harmonize. I mean, he was always very schooled at singing. So he sang on just some riffs I wrote, and, we decided to get a band together, and that's probably, I would have been, about 15 then.
So when did you form sort of like the roots of what would become Jag Panzer?
That would have been when I was about 16, about a year later. We had our buddy, Randy was playing bass, and he's a great guy and a great musician, but he was more into like Yes and prog rock, which I like too, but this was going to be a metal band. So we just Harry and I went up to our friend John's house, Jag Panzer bass player, and he was a trombone player, and he was great. He'd been playing since, 2nd grade trombone. And we said, hey, John, you want to play bass? And he said, yeah, I got some money saved up for something. Let's go buy a bass tomorrow.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so we actually went and he bought a bass the next day. And so I started showing him how to play the bass. And he took to it. He's just played bass constantly. And John said, I actually know a drummer from school, from jazz band, and he likes UFO and Rainbow. And I'm like, wow, that's cool. And we had a kind of a big high school, so I hadn't met this guy. And that was Rick Hilliard, who ended up playing on the first 2 Jag Panzer records. So we got together with Rick, and we rehearsed constantly. I mean, we went over a year where we rehearsed every single day. I mean, Christmas, birthdays, everything.
Yeah.
We rehearsed all the time, and it was cool. So that's we did our first demo then when I was 16 was our first time in the studio.
Wow, that's crazy. How old were you guys when Apple Destruction came out?
I was 19.
Okay.
I should clarify, I was 19 when we started working on Ample. It was a while before it hit the stores. I was almost 21 when it hit the stores.
Okay. we've had a lot of metal since then, obviously. And so what are some of the newer bands you like? When I say newer, I mean this could be the last 20 years, but
Can I touch on the new wave of British heavy metal?
oh, sure.
Yeah, that completely changed everything for me. I was, probably about 17, and I was reading Guitar Player magazine, and Mike Varney mentioned these bands I never heard of. He mentioned Tigers of Pantang
Mhm.
and Riot, and he mentioned Trust from France, and I think that's about it. And I was like, wow, I never heard of these bands. So I bought I think my first new wave of British heavy metal record was probably the Tigers of Pantang album, and I was floored. I said, "Oh my God, this is great!" And I
Yeah.
never heard of this. And I called my local radio station. I just assumed, they would be the next biggest thing in the States. I mean, they were that good to me. I thought, these guys are great. It's going to be the next big thing. And then I bought the first Riot album, Rock City, and I thought, okay, all of this is going to be huge in the U.S. And I called my radio station, and they said, we never heard of these bands. So that's when I sort of figured out there was a metal underground.
Yeah.
So I bought Angel Witch. I used to drive, that was about 70 miles to the record store in Denver that sold imports. So I was going there whenever I had money. I'd buy Angel Witch and Witchfind and Tigers of Pantang. I remember the first Def Leppard record that came out on Bloods and Rifola, their own label. And it was cool. Not only I loved the music, but with bands like Angel Witch and Witchfind, they were so inspiring to me because you could tell they didn't have a big budget on the record. And there was no U.S. distribution for them. So there was no money behind them. There was no big tours. And still they were putting out great records that just, I played constantly. So that's when I thought, maybe we can do this. Because prior to hearing those bands, I thought you had to be a rock star. And I certainly did not look like a rock star. And so I didn't know how you could possibly play music without being a rock star. But those new wave of British heavy metal bands completely changed my attitude. And I thought, okay, we can do this. And we started doing demos right away. And the early ones weren't really that good. But people in the industry, particularly Mike Varney, I'd send him stuff. He'd send me, I got 2 or 3 letters from him. He was really a lot of help. We were never on Shrapnel. I never worked with Mike, but he really, really helped us out when we were young kids. Brian Slagle helped us out from from Metal Blade. I mean, everybody was really, really cool with suggestions and tips, and it really, really helped us move forward. Okay, so to answer your other, your direct question,
We'll jump forward like 25 years or something.
Jump forward. My favorite band of the last few decades would definitely be Blind Guardian. I mean, their songwriting is phenomenal. Andre is a great guitar player. I mean, he is so underrated. I like to call him the metal Brian May.
Yeah.
I mean, he is fantastic. Accept was a favorite of mine since I heard Fast as a Shark. And Wolf Hoffman, another great guitar player. And a funny story, I mean, I love Wolf Hoffman's playing. And I mentioned it to a friend of mine that became a pen pal, and he said, I'm doing Wolf's website. And I said, oh, that's cool. When you talk to him, tell him, that I'm a huge fan. And he said, Wolf's working on his first solo album called Classical. And I said, cool, I'll have to pick that up. And, I just wrote it on my list. I always keep a list of vinyl to get. And then about 6 weeks later, I get a CD in the mail, and it's a signed copy from Wolf.
Oh, that's cool.
And I thought, oh man, this is so cool. I like Clay Morin. I'm not sure how to say it. How embarrassing. Is it Clay Morin?
I say Claymorian, but yeah.
Claymorian, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, those guys are great.
They are
great. Night Demon's cool. I've been listening to Night Demon for the past 5 or 6 years. Tigers of Pantang, been making records longer than Jag Panzer, and the Placed album is fantastic.
Yeah, I don't have the newest one, but I have the one right before it, and I think that's a great album.
Yeah. Yeah, who else is Blind Guardian's the big one for me. Blind Guardian, Accept, Halloween, Gamma Ray.
Yeah.
Running Wild. Yeah, I always had a thing for German music.
Yeah. Yeah, I
I,
agree. It's like, yeah, there's something about German metal, just there's a lot of good bands.
well, I lived in Germany from age 1 to 5, and my dad would play German music like every day, all the time. So I wonder if my ear just kind of picked up on that a little
Yeah.
bit. In the early 80s, there was a record store in Northern California called the Record Exchange in Walnut Creek. And, they had the best metal selection in the US. So I would order from them, and they would put out a hot new release phone message every Sunday.
Really.
So I would get up Sunday and scrounge together quarters. I mean, sometimes I'd go hunt down bottles to turn in for the refund, but I'd scrounge together $2 in quarters, and then I would walk to the payphone to listen to the hot new metal release every
That's
week.
cool. Yeah, that's the thing. I think with the internet, we've been spoiled because I think, I hate to sound like the guy, get off my lawn, but, I think, kids now growing up, everything's at their fingertips, but it was just such a, thing where you had to search it out back then. And it was cool, the thrill of the
Oh
hunt,
yeah,
I guess, to find the new record or the new band that nobody else had heard yet. And,
yeah. We were on tour many decades ago with Hammerfall and Gamma Ray, and they're all the guys in those bands were telling me about this record store that we're going to be going to like the second week of the tour, that it's the greatest metal record store in the world. And I was so excited. I said, all right, this is going to be cool. And Kai was telling me about it, and Jochen from Hammerfall, and saying this is going to be great. The morning we were going, the tour manager pulled me aside and said, yeah, you can't go. Your presence has been requested that you not go.
really?
I'm like, why? What? Well, the record store tried to organize a promotion with our record company, and they didn't do it, but Gamma Ray and Hammerfall's record companies did. So me going there, just part of my band and no promo set up, and that was just a no-go. So, I
Oh,
mean,
man.
I was disappointed. I understand the business now of why the record store had to do that, but I was not happy back then.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing. I've not been to Keep It True or Vakken ever, but I always see like the footage of Keep It True, and there's the whole like, just metal thing in the background where everybody's selling everything. There's just tons of vinyl and stuff. I'm like, oh, I would have fun going to Keep It True. Just as much fun watching the bands as I would just shopping, because it's like, here's a place that's got like everything,
Oh,
and
Keep It True.
It just
Keep
doesn't
It True
happen
is
here.
amazing. Yeah, I mean, everything about Keep It True is amazing. The bands are great. They always hire the best crew and best sound guy. Everybody in the audience is real. I mean, everything is just phenomenal about Keep It True. I mean, love playing. I think I played it 3 times, maybe 4. I think it's 3. Yeah, I'm trying. I wish I would remember these things
Yeah.
more. But yeah, Keep It True is incredible. Love that festival.
So what has metal meant to you throughout your life? I mean, obviously it's brought you some friends, Harry and John, who've been friends with for years, and it's given you opportunities to see places in the world and do things, but what else has it meant to you?
Oh, it's complete artistic expression to me. I became a metal musician because I just wanted I wanted to hear more metal that I heard in my head. I didn't become it to get girls or to be a rock star or anything like that. I just had this sound in my head that I wasn't hearing from anybody. Sometimes I heard things that were close, like Sabbath with Dio, like off of Heaven and Hell Mob Rules, but it wasn't quite it. So I thought if I can just play my own music and record it with my friends, that'll be great. And then it's a bonus if we can release it and other people want to hear it. And it's even bigger bonus if we get to go play cool shows around the world.
Sure.
So it's full artistic expression. I mean, in every way. There have been times in the band's career where I wanted to work on how to arrange music for cello and violin. And I get to do that in Jag Panzer song. Or if I want to try my hand at arranging some backing vocals, I mean, that's Harry's territory. He's phenomenal at it. But one time I got to try it, or I got to try, my hand at writing a bass line. I mean, John's a phenomenal bass composer, but every once in a while he lets me give him an idea. Maybe he's just humoring me. I don't know. But it's full artistic expression for me. It's great.
Yeah.
nobody's telling me don't do it, or you need to do this, or we need a hit, or you need to change your style. I mean, none of that's happening. So it's incredible for me as an artist.
Well, that's one thing I was going to ask because, yeah, I think, a band like yourself that's had, I mean, if you go back to Apple Destruction, 1984, it's 2024. So that's a 40-year career, which it's really difficult, I think, for most bands to keep that artistic integrity and do what they want to do for 40 years. Because somewhere along the line, somebody's like, well, if you had a pop ballad in here, or if you had, this, or if you added some keyboards, or if you toned the guitar down, or, did you ever face any of that? Or you pretty much always had that freedom to kind of do what you want?
No, we faced that from other people that have been in and out of the band, and they mean well. I mean, they didn't come in and try to take things over, but we've had people. We have a lot of other musicians in and out of the band, and sometimes you get guys that said, let's try this, or let's try that. And in the early days of the band, it used to be a free for all. Okay, we'll try that. Yeah, you can try that. And that resulted in our Distant Alliance record, which everybody hates. And I don't hate it. I hate the production. I think it sounds terrible, but a lot of that record was some of the new members who had a lot different influences than I did, just wanting to try different things. So we gave it a shot. So after that, I kind of reined it in a little bit. When I still want anybody new to be able to contribute as much as possible. I want everybody to have all the artistic freedom I do, but it's sort of reined in a little bit. It still has to sound like Jag Panzer.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing I do appreciate about your music, like you were talking about, the freedom to kind of do things, because you had some sort of classical elements, if you will, or folk type elements in some songs. And one of my favorite songs by you guys is The Moors. I just think that's an awesome song.
Thanks. Yeah, that was, Harry worked his butt off on that. I mean, he scripted out all those backing vocal parts and wrote them all out, and all the weaving in and out. And there's like a madrigal type choral section, and then they'll match in harmony. And it was amazing to watch, because I remember we were just sketching it out, and he came to my house. He goes, okay, start rolling. And then he's just singing, okay, switch to another track. And he's just building this right in front of my eyes. And I said, so you worked all this out before? No, this is the first time. This is all in my head. And I'm going, wow, it was really impressive that he did that full vocal arrangement in his head. Because there's a lot of vocals going on in that song. Yeah, I love that song. And that's cool you picked that. That's sort of a lesser known track of
ours. Oh, yeah. I mean, the first time I heard that, I'm like, okay, this is, because I love a good epic song, like you mentioned, Rainbow, and even Dio when he was singing for Black Sabbath. I mean, I think that was the thing with those epic kind of songs, Children of the Sea, and, Falling Off the Edge of the World. And just, I think lyrically, musically, just the landscape that you have with those epic kind of songs. And I think that's the thing a lot of people, especially in this day and age, it frustrates me to no end that people think metal is just raw, because that's what it's been for the last 15 years or 20. And it's like, you say heavy metal, you're like, oh, play that down-tuned scream stuff. No, there's more to metal than that. That's just one style. But I think that's the thing. If a lot of people actually heard heavy metal and heard, traditional, whatever you want to call it, just heavy power metal, straight ahead metal, and gave it a chance, they'd like it, but people don't get past imagery or whatever. And it's like, but I love it. I mean, I love the imagery. I love album covers. Metal's always had the best covers. Yeah. It's got the best liner notes and inserts. I mean, bands take time to think about this stuff and make a cool package. I mean, you guys knocked out of the park with the Hallowed and comic book and everything else you did with it. Things like that, I mean, you don't get with your typical pop album, which is just a picture of the star on the artist on the cover. And, so yeah, I mean, I appreciate everything that people put into metal albums. It's the whole package, it all lifts the music up. So.
Yeah, I have to explain people now, especially younger people. I was talking to a guy at the grocery store, and I live up here near the woods, and I've lived here for 30 years. So they see me at the grocery store all the time. So, and I had a young kid there ask me, so you play in a heavy metal band, right? And I said, yeah. And he said, I would like metal. I just can't take that, guttural vocals. And I said, oh, it's not all like that. And he was actually surprised. Really? Yeah. It's not? I said, no, there's lots of heavy metal. He never heard Dio. He had heard
Oh,
of Dio, but never listened to Dio. And he just didn't know there was metal with actual singing in it. And that surprises me. I mean, but I'm much older than this kid. And
yeah.
so I wrote down my band and a bunch of other bands for him to check out. And
That's awesome.
I think he may like it.
Yeah, well, I've been working a job right now with some younger guys, and one of them is, I think he just turned 25, and so he likes heavy metal because he's heard some of it, like, I think through family members and stuff, so I've been telling him about bands, and it's really cool because he's, like, discovering, like, Iron Maiden and Judas Priest, and same with Dio. Never really heard him, finally listened to some Dio, and so he was a 25-year-old kid going, "Oh, this is awesome music," "I never would have heard this because I'm not gonna hear it on the radio or hear it anywhere in this day and age."
No,
You
no,
know?
you're not.
Not unless it's, an underground internet radio or something, but yeah, it just isn't it's kind of I think metal, it's out there, but I think it's back to, like, kind of in the underground again a little bit, which I think has been good for it because we've got this creativity and everything that's coming out again now and some really cool bands.
Yeah, I agree.
We went through all the polish of the late '80s when everything became pop metal and that, and, it was
Yeah.
forced back underground in the '90s, and I think it emerged stronger for it. So when it comes to collecting music, are you a collector? You still buy CDs? You still buy music?
Yeah, sometimes. I bought Siren out of Florida. They're a
Mhm.
great band. I bought their vinyl. Um, I bought the Clay Maureen CD. So I don't buy as much as I used to. I just don't have the time.
Yeah,
I still listen to music constantly. I probably listen to music 8 hours a day, but I listen to every style of music you can imagine on purpose. I just want to immerse myself in everything. And
sure.
sometimes I challenge myself, like there are genres I just really don't like. So I'll challenge myself, can I find one good song in this genre? And sometimes I can, but sometimes I can't, but I give it a try. So I used to listen to when I was younger, it was metal, like 18 hours a day. I mean,
Yeah.
I was like, I'd fall asleep with vinyl on, but yeah, it's not as much metal anymore. Probably, still probably 2 hours a day. And, a lot of it's for the guitar playing, a lot of Accept and Blind Guard. But yeah, some of it's new stuff, and
Mhm.
I'll listen to it however I can get it. I'll buy vinyl, CD. I'll listen on YouTube, Spotify.
Yeah.
Um, I prefer vinyl, but some things aren't available on vinyl, or they're available if you want to pay $45 shipping.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I just consume music however I can.
Yeah, that was gonna be actually my next question. Are you more of a vinyl guy, CD guy? I mean, I know cassettes have made somewhat of a comeback,
Yeah, cassettes are. Yeah, I get people writing me, ask me if they can license Jag Panzer on cassette, and yeah, that's a big no for me.
Yeah.
I'm not a cassette fan. I prefer vinyl, but when it's well done, there's a lot of releases now. I think it's just the idea of selling the vinyl and
Mhm.
holding the product in your hand, and a lot of it just doesn't sound that good.
Yeah.
Translate to the vinyl. So I'm careful with what I get on vinyl because I want something that sounds good. I
Sure.
want to throw it on my turntable and listen to
But any guilty pleasure bands, anybody that, folks would be like, "Oh, I didn't think he'd like that, but he does."
it. Oh, there's a ton of them here. I don't ever call them guilty. I don't ever would never apologize for what I listen to.
Yeah.
I like what I like. Let's see what I'm trying to think of what would shock people. I'm a huge Kate Bush fan, but that doesn't shock anybody anymore because lots of metal musicians love Kate Bush. Um, People are shocked that I like Blackpink, the K-pop girl dance band. They
Okay.
have, whoever's writing and arranging their songs is really skilled. I mean, just have some wonderful. I'm not a big K-pop guy generally because I don't really like music where if I listen to it once and I know what's going to happen in the music, I get
Sure.
bored of that really fast. But whoever is writing the Blackpink, and maybe it's the band members themselves, or maybe it's the producer, who's ever doing it, it does a wonderful job. The music's really well written, and it just catches my ear, and I like it a lot. Um, Lately, I like a band called Fivefold out of St. Louis.
Okay.
And that drives my friends crazy because my friends say, oh my God, Mark, they sound like Creed or Nickelback. This just sounds like generic 90s. But it doesn't. It's got a little different melody lines to it. It's different. So I liked them. I wrote them a fan letter and they wrote me back, which is really cool. I usually write a band once a week if I like their music. They like never write back. But they did, which was really cool. I really appreciate that. I like, I love a British folk singer named Kate Rugsby.
Okay.
Phenomenal. She's just got the voice of an angel. And she writes songs with her husband, who's a guitar player, and she's got a full band. And she draws pretty big crowds in the UK. It looks like she's doing 2,000 to 3,000 people, which is pretty big. But I think she's almost unheard of here in the US, which is a shame because she's wonderful. I mean, I do listen to her. I probably listen to at least 1 or 2 songs from her every day. I think she is great. Who else do I listen to? Today I was listening to Narco Ballads. I didn't like any of them, but I haven't given up. That music's way different.
Yeah, I don't even know what that is, honestly.
Oh, it's traditional Mexican acoustic music.
Okay.
But the lyrics are all in support of your local cartel and very derogatory lyrics about competing cartels. So the musicians get killed. I mean, the musicians are often murdered, which fascinated me. So I thought, wow, I need to hear this music. Not really into the music at all, but I'm still going to keep listening. It's all right. It's just like sort of 40s era country music a little bit. It's different. Okay. So I've been listening to that. Trying to think who else I'm listening to. Started listening to Pearl Jam a lot lately, which is really weird because I got really sick of them for years. But for some reason, I like Eddie Vedder's voice now. So I've been listening to a lot of Pearl Jam. I don't care if an artist sells 10 records or 10 million. I mean, if I like music, I like it.
Yep.
There's a prog band from here in Colorado Springs called Mizar that had a few local hits in the 80s. They're incredible. I mean, they sound like they're similar to Marillion or Asia or any more commercial prog music, which I like all prog. So I've been listening to them a lot lately. Been revisiting the Jethro Tull catalog. I love Jethro Tull. Jethro Tull's a huge influence on my songwriting in Jag Panzer, but no one has ever picked up on that. And no one's ever mentioned that in an interview, like, oh, I hear the Jethro Tull influence, where I could point it out in songs.
Yeah.
Oh, check out that part. That's from that song on Thick as a Brick. Obviously, it's not a rip on it, but you could clearly hear the inspiration.
Yeah.
Rush, a big, always been a huge Rush fan. So
nice. Yeah, I mean, like I say, there's just so much out there. And I mean, now I feel like it's overload because, back in the day, it's like you'll see those things on Facebook where it shows like the year was 1984, pick one. And there's like, Power Slave by Iron Maiden, there's Judas Priest, Defenders of the Faith, and all these killer albums that came out. But there was only like 12 killer albums that year. Now we have 20 dropping every Friday. So it's just hard to keep up and really find the gems out of all the stuff that's coming out. But they are there, but it just takes a little more digging nowadays. There's just so much. It's the double-edged sword of everything's available to us, and that's good, but it also makes it hard to sort of stand out amongst everything that comes out.
Yeah.
Or to even get your stuff heard because it comes out, and as quickly as it comes out, it's buried because 30 more things came out on top of it. So,
Oh, yeah. And the cycle for an album now, people tell me is like 6 months. Like, okay, your album's out 6 months, it's done. Let's move on.
Oh,
that's really disappointing to me as a musician. I mean,
yeah.
But that's the way of the business nowadays.
Yeah, because I think about it as a kid, when you'd buy an album like Screaming for Vengeance or something, and I mean, you'd wear that thing out, and then they'd do like a year-long tour for it. And so, yeah, you might have had a year or two between albums, and it was okay because you were loving that one. But now it's like you say, we all have the attention span of a newt or something. So it's like, oh, the album came out last week. Yeah, I hope they put a new one out next month.
Yeah, back then when I'd buy an album, I mean, that was, I'd have to work 3 or 4 hours mowing lawns or something to get the money for an album. So
right.
I wanted to like it. So I would just play it to death. And occasionally I didn't like it. But really, if I didn't like an album, I would have probably heard it 10 times already.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like today where people will, listen to 10 seconds of a song.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I have a friend on Facebook, and the first single came out for the Hallowed, and I was visiting another metal forum online, and I see this guy post, and this guy's a friend of mine, but he posts, just heard new Jag Panzer, it sucks.
Oh, geez.
And I wrote him, dude, it came out 40 seconds ago.
Wow.
And he said, well, yeah, it just didn't catch me, in the beginning. I said, 40 seconds, come on. And he said, okay, I'll listen to the whole record. So he did listen to the whole record when it came out, and now he loves it.
Yeah.
But yeah, he made his decision 40 seconds in.
Yeah, and I think that's the problem is, like, especially for anybody that's in a newer band trying to get heard, you send somebody a demo or whatever you send them these days, an MP3, and people give it 10 seconds and move on,
Oh, it's a huge problem for Jag Panzer because Ample Destruction didn't catch on for 4 years.
Yeah.
The original reviews of Ample Destruction were fairly lukewarm. Metal Forces was the biggest fanzine in the world at the time, and they gave it an 8, where I think the average score was 8.5. They reviewed 34 albums that month, and we came in 17th.
Wow.
So we were middle of pack for the month. We didn't have a European deal, and I tried giving the album away for free to European labels, and every one of them turned me down. And then years later, then all of a sudden people started liking it. Same with Fort Judgment came out.
Yeah. People
didn't like it initially. And I'm like, what? Are you crazy? Listen to it. Oh, and then 4 years, 5 years after that, everybody loved Fort Judgment. Same thing with Age of Mastery. After that came out, oh, we really like it. Okay, we'll give it a few years. So it's, it's terrible. That always happens with us.
Yeah, I know. That's weird to me because, like, for me, I literally loved Fort Judgment from the time Black came on,
Yeah.
I mean, it was just cool. It was unlike anything I'd really heard. I mean, you guys do have a little bit different sound. I mean, you don't sound like, I mean, let's face it, when it comes to European power metal, a lot of that is similar, in style and scope and, way songs are structured and speed, whatever. But you guys, to me, just sounded different. You had a unique sound that, to me, was kind of refreshing at the time because we're talking, 97. So,
yeah, I don't consider myself a great guitar player by any stretch, but I can generally hear a song and sort of pick up my guitar and play along with it. So we've purposely, since the day one, I was listening to so much metal, really, really tried to give us a sound that was different from everybody.
Yeah.
So yeah, we do use different melodies. Harry certainly sings different style of harmonies. We try to incorporate a lot of different things, which, has become a double-edged sword. People aren't picking up on it initially, but the people that revisit it and listen to it, they start to like it.
Well, that's the thing. I think for me, I remember talking, gosh, when did Queensryche's EP come out? 83. So I remember the radio station we had here in town, the rock radio station, on Sunday, I think it was Sunday nights, would do where they'd play an album in its entirety, like a new album that had come out. So they're like, we got this new band, Queensryche. And I'm like, okay, who's Queensryche? So, and of course, first song that comes out is Queen of the Reich, and Jeff hits that scream, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is otherworldly. This is like nothing I've heard, so it's moments like that, those are always kind of the bands and albums that stick with me, are those ones that made my jaw hit the floor. And, to this day, I still get chills on Queen of the Reich. I still get chills on, Take Hold of the Flame. I mean, there's just incredible songs. Those two albums for me, I know everybody loves Empire and loves Operation Mindcrime, and those are great albums, but for me, you can't beat the first two Queensryches, the EP and the Warning. They were just so unique at the time. Nothing sounded like that, And then you had Fate's Warning come out with like The Spectre Within and Awaken the Guardian. And I'm like, oh my gosh, here we go again. This is like nothing I've ever heard, John Arch's melodies and the way he did things, and the music was progressive, but yet, heavy. And just, it's like, I think I said this on the last Metal Roots episode I did, but that's kind of like overall my favorite style of metal was probably that early Queensryche, early Fate's Warning style. There's just something about that,
I was the black sheep in the metal world when the Queensryche came out. Even among my bandmates, I didn't like it. I still don't. I know why I don't like it. Jeff Tate's a wonderful singer. I don't like the melody lines he writes. I mean, they're good, and millions of people love them. So obviously, I'm the oddball, but I hear his vocal melodies. I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't do that. No, I wouldn't do that. I saw him live though and loved him. I mean, I thought Jeff Tate was great with Queensryche, and I certainly respect everything they accomplished. And my bandmates love them, but yeah, just not for me.
Yeah,
Not a
it's
big,
interesting because I was
not a
talking to
big face
somebody.
warning. Yeah, not a big face warning guy either.
Yeah, it's funny because I think
I
especially
don't think
Fates Warning,
Craig
the
knows
John
that.
Arch stuff is like kind
Yeah,
of a love or hate with a lot of people. You know, they either
yeah.
get John Arch or they don't. And, you know,
Boy, Craig's going to be shocked when he watches this. Yeah, I'm not a
Greg, you
big,
might want to tune out right
not a
now.
big face warning guy either.
Yeah,
For the same reason, I don't like the vocal lines. And God, they're such a great band, and Jim's a really cool guy and a great player. Um, yeah, how many fans did I lose with this?
hey, you know what?
I
Each
got to
their
be
own. I mean,
honest.
I'm the same way. There's bands that everybody seems to get and love, and I'm just like, it doesn't click with me, you know?
Yeah,
So there's a few of those. And there's a couple that's like, okay, everything about them I should like. They're playing this style, they have great guitar work, they have this, but just something doesn't click, you know? And so, yeah, and I think that's the thing with music. It's subjective. I mean, we all like this thing
yeah,
called metal, but nowadays there's 800 genres of heavy metal, you know? So, yeah, everybody's got a
yeah.
little bit different taste.
And there's opposite bands like the new wave of British heavy metal band Witchfind. I think their Stage Fright album is brilliant. I mean, it's one of my top three new wave of British heavy metal bands easily, and I'm like probably the only person in the world that will say that. I mean, Witchfind. A few people like their first album. James Hetfield's been wearing their shirt lately, and it's a good album, but it doesn't touch Stage Fright. But I'm the only person I think that rates that album that high. But I love it. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, do you want to do anything to promote Jag Panzer? I mean, anything you want to say? I mean, I know The Hallowed came out a few months ago. It hasn't been out that long, but that's your newest album. So if folks aren't aware of you and this is the first time you're hearing about Jag Panzer, please go check them out. Give it a chance. I think you're going to love it. But yeah, if you guys have, I know you've got a show coming up. I saw the one posted is at
Yeah, in Tulsa,
right? Yeah, Tulsa, playing a festival there.
Yeah, I just ask people, if you're a metal fan, just give us a listen and don't give us a 10-second listen. You may not like it. A lot of people don't. I get tons of email because I guess the word got out years ago that I answer them. So I get tons and a lot of people don't like it, which is cool. I mean, people don't like what they want, but yeah, I ask people if you're going to check my band out, listen to several songs and listen to them a few times. And people ask me, well, that's a lot to ask. It's not, because a good song will last your whole life.
Exactly.
Like what you pointed out, the Queensryche for you and Fates Warning. I mean, that's great because that's music that you will carry with you until you die. I mean, that will always have an impact on you. So dedicating an hour to listen to a whole album is not too much to ask, I don't think. So that's what I ask of people listening to Jag Panzer. Just give it an honest listen. If you don't like it, that's cool.
Yeah.
Listen to what you want, but give us a chance.
Exactly.
We don't sound like anything mainstream whatsoever. We don't sound anything like Pantera or Sleep Token or Ghost or Amon Amarth or anything popular.
Yeah.
We don't sound like anything that was ever popular, I don't think.
Now, to me, that's a good thing because, like I say, there's enough bands that are kind of cookie cutter style, but you guys are original, so I appreciate that. And yeah, I think you have to give bands a chance, right? I mean, it's like it's like food. You might eat something the first time and I don't really like it, and then you eat it again 2 months later. Oh, this isn't so bad. And then it ends up being your favorite dish later on, right?
Yeah, give it a chance. Like the A to Z record with Face with what is Face
Mark Zonder? Yeah,
with Mark Zomber and Ray Alder. I mean, that's a great record. I mean, I wasn't sure I would like it, but give it a chance. So I sat down and I listened to it twice, and it's brilliant. It's a great record.
Yeah.
And don't be one of those, and I'm speaking to the audience in general, not you. Don't be one of those people that decides whether you like a record or not before you even hear it.
Right.
And I was guilty of that in the past. So, but I've tried to stop. Sometimes I'd look at a picture of a band and read a description and say, no, I'm not going to like that. I'm not a big Pantera fan. So anytime somebody was described as sounding like, although Dime was a great lead guitar player. So a lot of times I would read a description like, oh, they sound like Pantera. And I thought, oh, I'm not going to like them. And some bands like Exhorter, they're cool. I mean, they were described to me as a Pantera clone, and they're not. They're very cool. I like them.
I think that's the thing when the bands are a little bit heavier like that, or maybe have a little bit more aggressive vocal, they just lump it into, oh, it sounds like, when it's really not at all like that. It's different, but, people go with what they know. And it's like, okay, Pantera, Metallica are the bands everybody knows in heavy metal. So we'll just say it sounds like that,
Oh, yeah. I have people ask me that. Do you sound closer to Pantera or Metallica or Dream Theater? Well, like none of them.
So what is one of the biggest crowds you've played? Would it be like a Wacken or somewhere, or?
Yeah, we've done Wacken 3 times. Sweden Rock was really big, and Sweden Rock was cool because they made it a real family atmosphere.
Yeah,
I mean, it was nice. The promoter came around with his family. They were dressed really nice, like they were going to a nice picnic or something. They were very friendly. Thank you for coming to play, and it was so cool. They were so warm and welcoming. Crowd was great. We played the old Bang Your Head Festival probably 3 or 4 times, and that was incredible. We played Monterey Metal Festival with Wasp and Motorhead down in Mexico. That was a huge crowd, and that was really cool. Lots of big, cool festivals. Keep It True many times. Keep It True is always my favorite. It's just, everybody there, from the head promoter, Oliver, to the crew, to everybody, they're just wonderful people. And they're all diehard metal fans.
Yeah.
Nobody, not a single person working with Keep It True is doing it for a paycheck. I mean, everybody there loves metal. And the fans, everybody's really cool. I mean, it's cool for me because they sing along to every song. I mean, that's something, I dreamed about as a kid, writing songs as a teenager, that what it would be like seeing people sing along. And you get that at Keep It True. I mean,
that's very cool. Like I say, that's the moment you live for, right? And that kind of make it all worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And surprisingly, it's worth it too when you play the gigs to 4 people, and you can tell the 4 people are really, really into it.
Sure.
And because those 4 people may have had your gig circled on the calendar for months.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah. You can't. And I've talked to musicians in other genres around here that are, say, I can't get into it if it's a half full house. Okay. I mean, to each his own, but that's not the way I look at it.
No.
What's cool about, like Prog Power and Keep It True is every band gets treated like they're the headliner. I mean, the kindness to you. And that's, it's not always done like that in shows. Sometimes if you're the opener, you're dirt. And we've opened for bands where they made us set up outside in the winter in the alley.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
It was just and it was horrible, but you got to play. But Prog Power and Keep It True they treat every band wonderfully.
Yeah. Well, Mark, I know I've taken up a lot of your time, but I'm sure I could talk to you for 2 hours about all things music and metal, but I really appreciate you doing this. It's been a lot of fun to talk with you and to get to know you a little better and just to learn more about what makes you tick and this thing we all love called heavy metal. So thanks for continuing to make it for 40 years for people like me to listen to.
Thank you.